Chapter 4. Arming Up at Arethusa. Wind swept through the runway of the Tangiers airport as Min followed her squadmates out to the pavement. Her hands clamped on her ears, she squinted through both her billowing strands of hair and the dust kicked up by the jet engines on the plane in front of her. She slowly let go of the vice grip on her temples as the engine wound down. The plane's door folded down, creating a staircase to the runway for the jet's passengers. She bowed at the waist with her squadmates, her left hand covering her right fist, proffered in salute. 7 men and women in black and white combat silks disembarked, their faces obscured by opera masks and their chins parallel with the ground as they took each imperious step down to the runway. Min had only ever laid eyes on Qin Squad once. They were named for the dynasty that first united all of China, as opposed to the other squads like Zhao, who were named after the defeated kingdoms of the Warring States period. Foremost among them was their squad leader, call sign Huangdi, after the Yellow Emperor. He wore an appropriately yellow mask and carried a single broadsword at his hip, a Confucian spell scroll on a bandolier, and a Taoist talisman on a necklace. The leader of the Tiandihui's most elite squadron was a master in all 3 branches of Chinese magic, needing only to carry the bare essentials of each branch. The other members of Qin Squad were all named for emperors, heroes, and gods, but no one knew their real names. The only one Min knew was Qin 7, call sign Kong Ming. To her and the rest of Zhao Squad, he was Zhang Weiying. "Good to see you, Zhao Wan," Huangdi said, voice muffled by his mask. "The pleasure is all mine." Mr. Fang stood from his bow. The other members of Zhao Squad followed suit. "High Command has decided that, due to the nature of our interloper, someone ought to share the burden in overseeing you," Huangdi informed him. "That way, one leader can focus on the pursuit of the tomb. The other can prevent us from losing face. As requested, we have also brought a resupply of spell components and weapons," said Qin 2, call sign Zetian, after the Tang Empress. Her stark white mask, tinted with blush eyeshadow, looked back at the jet as former People's Liberation Army soldiers, now turned private soldiers for the Heaven and Earth Society, unloaded crates from the plane. The soldiers set the crates down and broke them open with crowbars. "Germans, Latins, Egyptians, Greeks, Slavs, English, and even a few defectors." A mountain of a man with a red mask of Guan Yu, the god of war, chuckled. "This is going to be a hell of a fight. It's a shame they didn't let us participate." "The prospects for this quarry are too small to justify turning this hunt into an arms race," Huangdi said. "If we gain a better understanding of the tomb's contents, perhaps we might see combat ourselves." The more Min heard about the circumstances of their mission, the more she dreaded it. It was bad enough that they had to run up against all these other magician squads. It didn't help that Henry seemed bent on getting in the way. She understood why he was angry, but it would be smarter just to let this go. "One of us will join the fray at the very least," Huangdi glanced back at the lean man wearing a blue mask. "Kong Ming, you know our defector, right?" Wei Ying stood a little straighter as he spoke. "I regret to say that he is my older brother, call sign Wukong." Huangdi took a deep breath, not quite sighing. "Wukong, huh? He's the one who got in your way in Morocco?" "He was an unexpected element, yes," Mr. Fang said. "We were distracted by a squad of Latin magicians while he made off with the coin. One of the Europeans actually provided an escape for him." Huangdi paused. "Kong Ming, you take partial command here. You are to be co-leader and focus your efforts on capturing Wukong when the opportunity arises." "Capture?" Wei Ying asked. "The punishment for treason is typically death." "Keep him from competing in this race. I won't make you kill your brother," Huangdi said. "Traitor or not." Wei Ying nodded. "Thank you, Huangdi, but even though I was born of the same blood as this filthy mutt of a traitor, I do not consider him my brother anymore. The fact that he's lived this long since his conviction is spitting on the Tiandihui's honor." "Your dedication is noted, Kong Ming," Huangdi nodded. "The rest of Qin Squad will begin setting up base of operations around the Mediterranean and will assist in communications and intelligence during the hunt when we can. Stay in contact, Qin 7. Wei Ying stood at attention until the rest of Qin's squad walked into the airport proper, followed by their soldiers. Mr. Feng smiled at him. "It's good to see you, Jiao Wei." Wei Ying tore off his mask, smiling at Min as Feng hugged their former member. She gave him a half-smile in return. "You've really moved up in the world," Shen chuckled, slapping him on the back. "How is it, being on Qin squad?" "Stressful," Wei Ying sighed, tying his hair up in a bun. "But once this is all sorted out, they want me to start a new department for domestic arcane security. I'd be the head strategist." "You've really left us behind, haven't you?" Min said. "I mean, I think I've earned it." Wei Ying shrugged as if suddenly realizing the inherent power imbalance here. "But with the new department, I could bring some people with me." "Showing favoritism is generally frowned upon, Jiao Wei Ying," Mr. Feng smiled. Wei Ying scoffed. "So is going easy on my brother." Going easy. Chen Boa towered over the lot of them before Lu Ying held him back. "We didn't go easy on him, dear, I assure you." Lu Ying fluttered her lashes. "We just underestimated him." "Underestimate? On Ying? That's not possible," Wei Ying chuckled. Shen laughed with him. "What is there to underestimate, aside from how insistent he is on making himself our problem?" "It's been 2 years, Wei Ying," Min said. "Han Ying, he's improved. A lot. If he weren't working against us." Wei Ying sneered. "Well, last I checked, you wanted nothing to do with him." She furrowed her brow. She had been among the most furious when she found out about Henry's betrayal, but in the months since his exile, she'd found herself doubting the conviction. Still, the Tiandi Hui took Wei Ying's side, so Min's opinions would remain very private. "Well, let's get you a room in our riad," Mr. Feng put an arm around Wei Ying's shoulder, "and get you into a less sweltering uniform." Wei Ying pushed Mr. Feng's arm off. "I'll stay in uniform, thanks. A professional dresses appropriately if he's to do his job effectively. In that interest, I suggest the 5 of you put on your own uniforms, else High Command will know how you've been representing us." Out of sight of the others, Min scowled. Wei Ying had always been this way. He had always been ignored for his aptitude for magic. Now that Zhao's squad was partially under his command, she couldn't help it if a shiver ran up her spine. Henry let out the first sigh of true relief he'd had in over a year. He was clean. He had nothing to do until tonight. He had just finished a pizza and was idly eating away at a styrofoam cup of the snow cone-esque dessert called granita as he drew Oracle bone script onto yellow Fulu charm paper, his legs resting on the cast iron chair across from him. Stretching up before him was the Syracuse lagoon and a beautiful array of fiery orange and deep violet in the sky caused by the sunset. He'd even managed to find a spot with no tourists to disturb him. Rows of sailboat masts filled the marina further down the coast of Ortiga, the tiny island that hosted the Syracusan old town, as the pleasant sea breeze ruffled his hair a bit. Someone on this sea-level walkway was playing a slow, relaxing tune on the piano, adding to the near-perfect ambiance. It was almost as if he was on vacation. Almost. Dressed in a loose shirt covered in flowering pink and orange patterns, Annalise waved to Henry from a ways down the coastline strip. She was holding a manila folder under her arm as she sat down at his table. "I just finished translating," she grinned. "Why, yes, my day's been lovely. Thank you for asking. How has yours been?" Henry smirked, glancing at her over a pair of aviators. Annalise frowned. "Oh, I'm sorry. Would you like me to waste your time asking about frivolous bullshit, or would you like to know how to find the tomb of Alexander the Great?" "You must be great at parties," Henry sighed. "Fine. Spill." "So the coin." Annalise pulled out a beat-up leather-bound journal not unlike Henry's own and flipped to a detailed sketch of both faces of the coin. She pointed to the face with the temple on it. "The inscription along the edge says, 'The fearful cannot believe in an honorable world,' and 'The honorable know the world kills the fearful.'" Henry raised an eyebrow. "Is that it?" Annalise spread her hands. "It's a coin. What else do you want?" "Well, what about the image on the back?" Henry tapped his finger on the drawing of the back face. "Is there nothing about it?" "It's a temple. It could be any temple from here to Lebanon," she sighed. Henry grimaced. Let's shift focus a bit and assume that we need all of the coins to make sense of anything. We know where the second one's going to be. Did you get the information from your client? Partner, Annalise insisted. Client? She scoffed and set the file folder on the table, sliding it to him. Don't get any granita on it. Henry muttered a random noise, opening the folder and looking over building plans, schedules, guest lists, and manifests for the artifact being displayed at the event. The Latins are hosting this gala in tandem with the Greeks at the Acropolis Museum, Annalise said. Aside from them, the Germans, English, Slavs, Levantines, Egyptians, and Chinese will be sending representative combat squads to attend. 8 circles. Jesus, Henry muttered, shifting through the papers. Mention of the Germans made him wonder if they had similar plans for either the girl from Morocco or Annalise as the Chinese likely had for him. It's not that bad, Annalise insisted, though she didn't sound like she believed her own words. Each circle will only be sending 1 squad. They can't risk losing more numbers than that over 1 treasure trove. Thank God we live in this time. Imagine 20 years from now. If this boom of magicians keeps up, the Circle could send magicians into battle like a meat grinder. They could take over governments, maybe the world, Henry said. Let's not think too far in the future. Annalise pulled out a map of the museum grounds. Any plans coming to mind? What, you got nothing up there, Brainiac? I thought you had a plan. That was one of your selling points. We have means, not a plan. I'm not a combat magician. This is your field. Henry scoffed as he took the map from her. He began to scour the other documents, including details on the security system and the schedule for the event. I mean, we can probably find the coin wherever it's stored before it gets put on display. As long as we can get ourselves on the guest list, things should go smoothly. If we can get by without magic, even better. They're probably looking out for magical threats anyway. I don't know about forging our way on the guest list, but I do know that my partner has her name on the list, Annalise said. You could go as her +1. Henry grimaced. I don't know. I'd have to meet this partner of yours, who seems reluctant to show her face. Why is she even on the guest list? Doesn't that seem suspicious to you? You can ask her yourself before we get to Athens. She wants to meet you as well. Annalise pulled out her phone. Wait, I don't have your phone number. I'm just saying, anyone who has their name on that list is either being led into a trap or is dragging someone else into a trap. Henry opened his phone. Fuck, I need to buy a SIM card. Get an international plan, Annalise said. Do you have signal? We don't want the other circles being able to hack our communications. Oh no, I've just used WhatsApp this whole time. And WeChat. Did I mention I'm a fugitive from the Chinese? Henry's voice dripped with sarcasm as he exchanged contact information with her. I'll see what I can divine from this client of yours. Any word on the Egyptians? What exactly is this job? I'm selling some Minoan texts to them. They're willing to pay for any leverage over the Greeks they can get right now, Annalise explained. We'll get about 15,000 US for the ordeal, plus an order of firearms. 5 for you, 10 for me. Whoa, what? I found the texts. I set up the deal. I should get a bigger cut. He was going to ask why he was getting $5,000, but he decided it was best not to bring that up. Maybe Annalise had worse business sense than he gave her credit for, especially considering her relationship with this mysterious client of hers. Which squad is doing the deal? He asked. Atum squad. Know anything about them? Henry grimaced, racking his brain. Egyptian squad leaders always inherited the name of the god their squad was named for, so callsign Atum could be a different person every year. That said, Henry was familiar with Atum in an operational context. I think Atum 1 is a tomb walker. Can't die of age or half the shit that makes people die. But I think he can only use baseline hieroglyphic magic beyond that, Henry said. And they have a lectorist. Lectorists could almost mind control you if they knew your true name, along with several other true name-based magics. It was the whole reason magicians used call signs and pseudonyms in the first place. You need something for me to call you if they have a lectorist, Annalise said. Your call sign, it was Wukong. Am I pronouncing that right? She wasn't. My true name is Chinese. You should be fine calling me Henry. Annalise sighed. All right. Well, we'd best hope things don't go south. The deal should be simple enough, Henry muttered. But if they're here, no doubt they're looking for Alexander's tomb as well. I figured the Egyptians would have a head start over anyone else, considering the tomb's last sighting was in Alexandria, Annalise said. It sank centuries ago, Henry said. Until the Latins dug up that manuscript, there wasn't a magical way to find it. For whatever riddles we have to solve, the Egyptians will be our competition. They don't have any inherent advantages we know of, but that does mean they'll fight harder. I'll see what else I can dig up. Annalise lounged in her chair. We have until midnight, so we might as well enjoy the view. Things are going to get much more frantic after we head to Athens. Hours later, Henry and Annalise climbed the short way up the Fountain of Arethusa, a premier tourist site in old Syracuse, but almost completely devoid of people at this time of night. The ramparts that turned the island of Ortiga into a fortress split to make room for this odd freshwater spring only a few meters from the ocean. Henry leaned over the iron fence between himself and the 10-foot drop into the water, admiring the palms and other plants growing on a small island in the middle of the fountain. This is the meeting place? Really? He asked. These are the coordinates? Annalise shrugged. You'd think they'd want it to be a little more secretive, he muttered. This is to our advantage, Annalise said. The more risk there is for people seeing us, the more dangerous it is to use magic. Yeah, that's exactly why I'm worried, Henry said. You know this fountain is legendary. Annalise gestured to the pit surrounding the spring, changing the subject. Yeah? How so? Oh, I finally get to teach you something, history major. I'm a college dropout, and legends aren't exactly history. Don't take this from me, she said before clearing her throat. This spring is thought to be the home of a nymph named Arethusa, who was a patron figure of ancient Syracuse. It's also one of the only 4 places in Europe where papyrus grows. She pointed at the reeds surrounding the palm trees down below. Huh, maybe that's why the Egyptians want to meet here, Henry said. They'll, walk out of the papyrus plants or something? I wouldn't hold your breath for that. She tapped him on the shoulder. Henry turned to face the old town. Headed by a black man in a trench coat, darkened spectacles, and a hat out of the 30s, a team of 3 men and 2 women walked out of the labyrinthian streets. Like many magician circles, the team was overwhelmingly young aside from the leader. Most circles only sustained about 5 to 10 concurrent members during the last few hundred years. Only recently had the numbers exploded. Henry didn't have a solid theory as to why that was, but as far as he could tell, it was a reaction against an increasingly digitized and globalized world. The understanding required to break Solomon's wisdom, which once took a lifetime of study and access to scarce knowledge, was more accessible than ever, if lacking in nuance and true mastery. Even though his time in China had left a bitter taste in his mouth, he didn't want its culture becoming a commodity to be cheapened and besmirched. The other 4 seemed to be of Arabic-speaking Egyptian descent, with olive skin. Henry figured the leader must be Nubian or part of a Bantu ethnicity. He potentially had access to the magic of a second culture. The street lamps provided fitting illumination for this midnight deal. Henry and Annalise approached, meeting them halfway across the plaza in front of the spring. Moneta! The bespectacled man smiled as he shook Annalise's hand as he used her call sign. His accent was thick, yet Henry couldn't tell what kind of accent it was. The man glanced at Henry. And friends, he looked back to Annalise. Birds of a feather flock together, I suppose. Atum, it's good to see you. Is the information secure? Annalise nodded. Is my payment ready? Ramses. Atum looked to a tall, lean Arab man, no more than 3 years Henry's senior. Ramses held aloft a briefcase handcuffed to his wrist before opening it. Annalise got a look at the piles of money before he closed it again. Half of it was US dollars, the other half euros. Upon seeing the money, the tension in the air seemed to dissipate. Henry had never really been involved in non-combat situations in the magician's world. He was expecting them to be far more antagonistic. You're that Chinese defector, aren't you? Said a girl with heavy eye makeup and a rather eccentric black and gold dress that looked like it belonged in a sci-fi novel. Oh yeah, the 3rd man of their team said in a far more accented English than the others. If you ignore the beard. Now, Cleopatra, we aren't here to pry, Atum said. Though I don't think in all my days I've ever seen 2 defectors of different circles work together. Really? Never? Ramses asked. Maybe once, back during Ottoman times, Atum muttered, but it takes an untrustworthy soul to know one, so I doubt the prospect is often enticing. I heard you were a tomb walker, Atum. What's the time frame for all your days? Henry asked. If you don't mind. Oh, I was born sometime during the Fatimid Caliphate. What, 300 years ago? Henry's eyes widened. Try 1,000? You're really that old? Beyond Atum's immense age, Henry was happy to know the immortal's mental faculties weren't all there. Tomb walking is powerful. It can theoretically go on forever, so long as you do the ritual once every 80 years. Though I've lost count how many times I've done it. I even remember trading with Chinamen like yourself on the Silk Road. Henry blinked. Atum, you can't say Chinamen, Cleopatra hissed in Arabic. What? Really? It doesn't exactly have a positive connotation. Henry shrugged, joining them in speaking Arabic. My gods, I'm sorry. You have to understand that language changes happen really fast for me. I mean, it seems like yesterday you would have been speaking Anglo-Saxon. I'm not torn up about it, but is that why you dress like a jazz musician from the 30s? Henry chuckled. I just really like this style. Atum grinned as he looked down at his trench coat. For being the premier sortie squad of the Egyptian circle, Atum's squad was surprisingly friendly. But that's exactly what was putting Henry on edge. Atum gestured to the unused tables sitting on the patio of a closed restaurant with an overhanging roof of red tiles. Shall we conduct our business? As Atum's squad took up position around the patio as combat squads usually did during a trade-off, Henry juxtaposed himself to Atum as Annalise and the Egyptian magicians sat at the cast-iron table. Annalise pulled a laptop out of her tote bag, along with a hard drive. She logged on to the computer and plugged in the hard drive. Henry's eyes moved between the members of Atum's squad. His fingers grazed his butterfly swords tucked into his belt, since he'd somehow lost his sheath between here and Morocco. Annalise spared a glance behind her, giving him a death stare like he'd never seen. He responded with his own, refusing to accept her apparent insistence on being gullible. Ramses uncuffed his wrist from the money, setting the briefcase on the table, as Annalise put her laptop next to it and opened it. A smile crept onto Atum's face as he looked over the texts. Very nice, he said, and very fine work. I'm glad there were no issues. Nefertiti? The girl whose call sign was apparently Nefertiti came over to the table and placed a backpack on top of the money. Now, we did fulfill your request for $10,000 worth of payment in the form of weapons and ammunition, but we do have to be candid that the weapons are enchanted, so they may not be used against members of our circle, Atum said. Is that acceptable? Henry furrowed his brow. Hang on a minute, Annalise cut him off. It was expected. Moneta, Henry hissed. We'll discuss later, Annalise said. Now get our things. Annalise handed Atum the hard drive while Henry begrudgingly picked up the backpack and briefcase. Have a good night, Moneta. Hopefully we meet again and continue our profitable business together. Atum stood and tipped his hat as his squad filed out of the patio towards the fountain. Ramses lifted his hand as papyrus plants grew out of the fountain's walls and wrapped around Atum's squad. The plants closed up, then opened, starting to return to normal. Atum's squad was gone. Huh, I guess you were right, Annalise chuckled. Annalise, what the fuck? These weapons are enchanted. They could be... It'll be fine, Henry. I can strip most of their enchantments on my own, Annalise sighed. And they call me high-strung. Well, you said it yourself. I'm a combat magician, so... Henry shrugged. Let's get to bed. We have an early train tomorrow. Henry squinted as the sun blasted his face with heat, accompanied by fresh air. Having spent the last 26 hours on a car ferry, forced to sleep in the seat of a restaurant booth, he felt like a cave-dwelling creature stepping into the light for the first time. Both he and Annalise were covered in a mix of sea grime, their own sweat, and grease, and in Henry's case he was about to collapse. Funny how an extra-long ferry could exhaust him as much as an all-out brawl with a squad of magicians. Magicians often had to take things like buses, trains, and ferries in order to avoid confrontations with other magicians. Being trapped in an airplane for hours on end was the perfect circumstance for an assassination. More than one plane had gone missing over the ocean thanks to magician conflicts. It was also far easier to smuggle weapons across the border by land and sea than by air. Compared to the ferry, the bus ride was a breeze. Only 3 hours, and they'd gone from the port city of Patras across the Peloponnese and into Attica. Not to mention that the buses in Greece were pretty nice, especially compared to the one Greyhound Henry had ever taken, where someone had gotten stabbed halfway through. This time he was the most dangerous one on the bus, given the slew of handguns, shotguns, and rifles that the Egyptians had given him and Annalise. They'd had no time to wash up after the ferry ride, and as such were both disgusting. That grime was starting to get crusty was the best word he could think of. The Athens bus terminal was only a 10-minute walk from the nearest metro station, and within 1 hour, Henry was heaving his backpack up into the Monastiraki Square, right on the edge of ancient Athens. The afternoon sun was sweltering, as it usually was, but thankfully not many tourists were out and about at the moment, leaving the multicolored tiles visible and the Ottoman Mosque and Orthodox Church right across from each other unswarmed. Cast in shadow by the sun, Henry caught the magnificent sight of the Parthenon's silhouette between the mosque and metro station. The plateau-shaped hill dominated the skyline. Holy shit, he couldn't help but smile. He wanted to go up there. Once they washed up, he wanted to go see it, and he wanted to see it at sunset. That would be perfect. Henry flinched as Annalise snapped her fingers next to his ears a couple times. I know you're creaming your pants over those old rocks, but let's try to focus. She frowned. Yeah, let's, where are we staying? He started following her away from the square and towards less colorful, winding streets of stone brick. A hostel, Annalise said. It's clustered around a bunch of other hostels, so there'll be plenty of witnesses. Solomon's wisdom won't be able to hold if we're attacked. Cars carefully made brazen attempts to get through the streets while bikers and pedestrians owned the roads. Henry's stomach squirmed as his nose caught the scent of grilled meat from a gyro stand. The bus stations only had pastries and ingredients for what he called out of options, which consisted of a bag of chips, a bottle of water, and an ice cream from one of those little freezer units. Any word on squads in the area? I haven't heard anything. Annalise shrugged. Well, keep your guard up. The Hecatean Circle's headquarters is probably less than half a mile walk from here, plus all the visiting squads for the gala. We're in the belly of the beast. Henry glanced to his right and found 3 massive windows that had been opened like garage doors, allowing him to look directly into a bar mixed with common room, filled with early 20-somethings on their laptops. Undoubtedly a hostel. He followed Annalise around the building to the front, which had been covered in some strange mix between graffiti and street art depicting 2 lounging humanoid figures with photorealistic fox and raccoon heads on their necks. He frowned at the paintings before entering through the glass door. They checked in and unloaded their things in a room with 6 beds. The other 4 occupants were missing, probably out sightseeing. Just before the 2 of them got ready to shower, Henry froze. Wait, I only have 1 pair of clothes. I'll shower and then go buy you something while you wash up, Annalise said. She immediately grabbed her things and locked herself in the room's ensuite bathroom. Henry sighed, claiming one of the lower bunks. He looked at himself in a mirror, hanging on the wall over a long table. He poked and prodded at his face and hair, disgusted with his own visage. He didn't consider himself a germaphobe or paragon of hygiene, but he had standards. To think he was traveling with a woman and looking like this. It was a bit embarrassing, to say the least. Annalise didn't come off the boat unscathed, but he looked like a feral dog compared to her. As Annalise showered, Henry went about setting up an account with a food delivery app and ordered himself about 30 euros worth of souvlaki and gyros. The moment she stepped out of the bathroom, he moved past her and claimed the shower for himself. By the way, I'm washing my clothes in the sink. Annalise's shout was muffled through the door. He scrunched up his nose at the sink, which was full of Annalise's clothes, soaking in slightly soapy water. The severe discoloration of the water made him wary of his own clothes. Just get me something to wear, he replied. What do you want? Black shirt, nice shorts. And boxers. He took off his mandarin jacket and plunged it into the discolored soapy water, hoping whatever laundry strips Annalise was using would soak up some of the filth from his favorite piece of clothing. He spent twice as long as he usually did in the shower, making sure every speck of grime left his body. Now was his only chance to get clean. He had managed to arrange a meeting with Annalise's partner for this evening. And this afternoon he had plans. He was going to see the Acropolis.